The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid is eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda.
Good morning. Oh, no, it's afternoon.
I don't hear Belinda. There you go. Hello. Good
Hi.
afternoon. Good afternoon. I've forgotten how positively upscale you sound all the time.
I try.
But I like to mock the guests on this show in the first few seconds, so I go for the accent first, and then I can, I'll move on to other things maybe later.
Okay. I'll be ready.
I am excited to see you and to always speak with you about things that really do matter. What do you have for us today?
Okay. Well, it's been a really intense week, so I want to just hit a few of those first. Then I want to tell you about some fantastic innovations. And then I want to tell you about this amazing anti-poaching group, these women in South Africa. So let's start with the week, because it's been intense out there. I mean, the news yesterday that the Abraham Lincoln, the statue that we have in the Lincoln Memorial in DC. So there's a wax replica that's outside a school in DC. Well, yesterday it was so hot, or actually it was a couple of days ago when they had the heat wave. The head melted off. So now you've got this iron, rod sticking out, but you've got no head. That's
Albert. Can you find it? It's a great picture of of Lincoln sitting there, and his head. There it is, and the head is melted off, and you can see the rest of Lincoln ain't doing that great either.
Yeah, no, he's getting pretty sort of floppy around the edges. Yeah, so it's really hot, and we know this. We know what happened in Mecca at the Hajj. The great pilgrimage that happens every year. Up to 1,300 people died because of the heat. Tourists are dying on Greek islands because of the heat. Half of Minnesota is underwater. It's intense out there. And I sent you that story last week, Mark. The one about the meteorologists who are being threatened when they are linking these extreme weather events to climate change. And it's crazy. There was the one guy who was employed by a CBS affiliate to go to Des Moines, and they said to him, his instruction was, we want you to be our chief meteorologist, and we want you to absolutely link what is happening in the weather to climate change. Well, there's this big, right-wing backlash happening against meteorologists. I said it to you because, you were on Fox News telling people about the weather. I mean, this guy got a death threat. He eventually left and went back to Massachusetts. He's like, it's not worth it to be being treated like this for giving people the facts, the on-the-ground data, what is happening out there. So that's nuts.
No, I mean, this is really something that has been increasingly an issue that news people confront. You're talking about the weather, and we talk about it you can either talk about it in this one-dimensional 5-year-old to 8-year-old explanation of what the weather is going to be and what jacket you need to bring tomorrow, or you can put it into some kind of context. And increasingly, as you have more and more severe weather and more extreme weather and extreme weather events, it seems to crave context. And yet when you put it in any kind of context associated with climate chaos and the causes behind climate chaos, you get the pushback, the bullying, and even the death threats that accompany it.
Yeah. And it's just bonkers because, do you want to be, a low information voter? It's just, you need this information when you go to the polling booths or just in your everyday life. You need to know what's happening, and the weather is getting, so extreme. And, last year it was the hottest year on record. This year is already set, to beat that. And we're really dealing with this in real time. And so you need journalists telling you, the truth about what's happening. And
well, the last thing I would say on that, just to dovetail with that, is that if you just want to know what the weather is tomorrow and whether or not to wear a sweater, you've got your phone. There are plenty of other things that kind of reduce it to a cartoon and a number, which is the temperature. But people tune into the news typically, news on radio, on television, and media, and even now and sort of on this platform, for some kind of causality, put it in a context, explain the why behind the cartoon and the number. And you can't get to the why without addressing many of these things. So it's a sad state. And sadly, I don't know that we're breaking through. It feels as though there's a retrenchment, and so we'll see.
Well, we'll keep at it, you and I, Mark. How about that?
All right, very good.
Okay, so a couple of really cool things. There was an announcement so they have this meeting. It's called the Meeting of Champions, the Summer Davos, and it's the 15th World Economic Forum. And at it was announced that there are now these battery-powered planes. They have got 4-ton ones to fly at a distance of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. So short range flights, but important because this company is saying that by the year 2027, 2028. There'll be 8-ton versions of it. And, if you prove it at one size, and then you're able to scale up, then we keep going. And it totally aligns with the vision that our guest of 2 weeks ago, Stanford environmental engineer Mark Jacobson has of this, 100% wind, water, solar powered Earth. And the big thing that, next is, we're getting our electricity generation up for, our homes and for buildings and all these things. But it has to also, cars, it has to also be aviation, maritime travel and industry. And so when you have a breakthrough like this and people are like, hey, we've got a plane and, this is how far it can go, because the majority of flights in the world, that are taken are, more short haul. So, this is a, I said, we're flying in the right direction when I, tweeted it this morning. I'm sorry, it's a terrible.
I get it. Yeah.
I couldn't help myself. I just got it.
I need to retweet that. I have yet to do it. Yeah. There is the announcement.
Yeah. And so it's, this is big. This is big. And then the other thing, so we have these. They call them kites, these tidal kites. And this is a Swedish company, and they're busy right now off the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands are in the North Atlantic. They're part of the Kingdom of Denmark. And, the thing that's really exciting about these tidal kites is so they're under the water. They call them sea dragons. I sent a link so we can put up a picture of them too. So this is the Faroe Islands. There are 16 of them. There are tons of currents that go, all around them. As you can see, the tidal currents, they're a constant. And this is the thing that's super exciting about them, is that they could provide the base load of power because, wind and solar happen, when the sun is shining, when the wind is blowing. Well, currents, caused, by the gravitational pull of the moon, and they're always going in and out. That never stops. So what's exciting about these guys, so as you can see, they look like a glider. They deploy them under the water, and they're tethered to the bottom of the ocean, and they sort of do these big loops in this figure 8 movement, catching all the energy of the currents, which don't stop. So this is really exciting. And the thing that the Swedish company has been doing is going, okay, we want to make these as easy to be able to install and to run as possible. So they've got as many components as they can onshore, making the actual sea dragon that's in the ocean as sort of maintenance free as possible. They're very easy to deploy, to take in and out. They don't weigh too much. They don't need a huge big current. And as we know, the ocean covers 71% of the Earth's surface. It's a huge resource. So if they can prove their efficacy here, then that's another technology that can be scaled up and is also part of the vision of wind, water, solar, 100% wind, water, solar. So
that's fascinating. Also, I guess what you're saying in terms of installation and creating this, you're talking about essentially scalability, right? You're talking about getting enough of these things out there to actually be able to create sufficient power.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the Faroe Islands, so 53,000 people live there. They're not connected to anybody else's, electrical grid. And so they've been relying solely on oil, and now we're going 100% renewable. They're putting in wind turbines, and now they've got these kites. And the thing about it, the model that the world operates on now, well, the developed world, is, this very centralized electricity generation. We have these big, PG&E and all these big companies that completely control it. But what we need to do, and particularly with solar, if we can put solar panels, and we heard from Mark 2 weeks ago, it's not 11% of the world's electricity that could be generated, if we use just available rooftops that we already have. It could be up to 25%. But it's really this decentralized model that we have to be looking towards in the future, because this is going to give us more sustainable energy and we'll have more control over it. And we also know that these big power grids and traditional methods of moving electricity from one place to the other, they're very affected by high atmospheric temperatures. And so the more we can decentralize it, this is showing the Faroe Islands, and they've got this huge battery system. And we can, talk about, the pros and cons of batteries. And also, I'm sure some of our listeners are going, okay, these things, these, kites, these wind sea dragons are under the surface of the water. What are they doing to marine ecosystems? And that is definitely a valid issue. And I'm going to be looking into that more. So I'll report back on that. I'm sure that, they're really trying to stay out of the way of any migratory paths of, big mammals. But, there are lots of creatures in the ocean. So,
well, I wasn't going to mention this, but I will, just because you've mentioned the ocean and ocean creatures. The Faroe Islands have a shameful history, and with this tradition of herding dolphins and whales into a cove. It's just like the cove in Japan, and they slaughter in cold blood with machetes and knives, and they bring their kids to this crap, and it's horrible. And the water is red, blood red, as far as the eye can see. And I love that they are doing this with innovations that seem to take stock of sustainability that they need to live with. But I wish they would come out of the Stone Age with this ridiculous medieval literally bloodthirsty tradition they have of killing these magnificent creatures in the way they do. It's a horrible, horrible thing, and it takes place right there in the Faroe Islands.
Yeah. Well, Iceland too. I mean, they've got some, millionaire, whaler who's just been, asking the Icelandic Parliament again, for the right to, it's fin whales, and he wants to kill 128 of them, and they kill them when they're pregnant, and it's just this
it's
not
brutal. And now that we're talking about that, the argument in this country and the ruling in this country that permits the macaws, the Native Americans who used to have a tradition of whaling, it now permits them to hunt for whales because it's in the tradition of their people or whatever. And I'm a big supporter of Native Americans who've had their land jacked. This country is a bunch of colonialists. We have taken the land of these native peoples, no question about it. We've taken their tradition, we've appropriated their culture in many ways, and we've steamrolled a lot of what was that culture. All of that said, there are parts of traditions where we've been doing it for years since the very beginning, like slaughtering these whales, that have to go. I would excise that from your traditions. I mean, we had a tradition of keeping slaves in this country. That was another abhorrent one. I mean, you can go back to traditions of, so all I would say is, just in this kind of respect for sea life and respect for the planet, the macaw, the Native Americans who get away with this, they've just now gotten this approval from the U.S. government to go back to the whaling, and it's shameful.
Yeah, it is hard to take.
But this is to take nothing away from the developments with the ocean that hold out so much promise, and it's oftentimes orphaned for, as you suggest, sort of solar and wind. And this is an exciting new area of technology. So,
well, what they're estimating is it could create, 30 to 40% of their electricity. Well, that's a base load, right there. That's impressive. So yeah, it's moving in the right direction. And I've got to end on a positive story about animals and big mammals. So this is especially for you today, Mark.
Thank you, Belinda.
Okay, so there's this elite group of anti-poaching force. They operate in the Oliphant Reserve, which is part of the Kruger National Park in South Africa. And their area, even though it's just a part of the park, is 200,000 square kilometers. So it's really big. They are unarmed and they're women. And they are having incredible success. And it's a really fantastic story because it's hard for them to get gainful employment that really matters. They go around their reserve. They claim that they have stopped the poaching of rhinos. So I love that we're seeing a rhino right now, because that obviously is huge and ridiculous, because their horns, are not an aphrodisiac. They're just like our fingernails. They're agglutinated hair. But the fact that, people in certain countries believe that, this is going to really, add to, their sex lives, these rhino horns, it's not. So these are the women. They're armed only with pepper spray, handcuffs, and radios, but they're really well trained. They have military discipline. As soon as they go out, they're looking for the snares. They're looking for any kind of traps for the animals. They are they're in radio contact at all times with their base. There is armed backup if they come across poachers and they're endangered. But the beautiful part of it is, because they're unarmed, poachers don't want to shoot them. They're women who don't have guns, and so they're not being shot at. So they're, this elite force, they're having this incredible impact. And, I just see this as an absolute positive. And if they really have stopped the poaching of rhinos in that, preserve, that is amazing. And the other thing that they're doing is this. So it's really empowering for these women, and then for all the women in their lives who see what they're doing. And the other thing that they say that they're really educating people on is, a lot of people, in these African countries, with these animals, have this belief that the animals belong to the white people. Well, that's nonsense. And so what these women are able to do is say, these animals they belong to all of us, and we all have a stake, in their survival. So I thought that would be a good story.
Oh my God, that's a terrific story. And it's interesting, because I used to be in touch with, and he's been on the show before, back on the radio show, or maybe my old podcast, a guy named Damien Mander. He was he was in Australian Special Forces and has had elite military training. And he was in Iraq and taken by the plight of what you're talking about, very few anti-poaching elements fighting a really strong poaching force, right? They have all kinds of assets, these poachers. So they have helicopters, they have sophisticated weaponry and technology. So Mander did the same thing. And I thought in a way you were going to be talking about him, because it was largely a female-led force. There's something about women, when you get them together, they stay focused and committed. And he said that they were so trainable, and they were so committed to being trained. They weren't distracted by other things, that they were just a terrific regiment to pursue the cause. So this guy, Damien Mander, he was doing much the same thing. But now I Google him, and I can't find much. I don't know what he's doing. He might still be very active, but I love that these patrols, led by women, continue in these animal preserves in South Africa, which are so very vulnerable and have been almost picked clean as a result of poaching.
No, the poaching stories are really terrible. So to be able to tell a good news, good eco news version of what's happening, and that they're having success is always so good. But the fact that they're, they say that they're really, really trained. So they know they've got this military discipline, whatever situation they come into. But can you imagine you're going out there, you've got handcuffs, a radio, and pepper spray, and you're going to be encountering people with, guns. I mean, it's
guns, and they're not
so
afraid
brave.
to use it. I mean, it surprised me when you said they don't want to shoot them because they're women. I mean, that surprises me because they're pretty wanton in their use of violence out there in pursuit of poaching ends. But that is a great story. I love it. I hope it gets more momentum. I mean, these
I
creatures
tweeted it,
need
so
our
you can, so
well, that's the momentum it needs. It needs a little Twitter,
Problem
Twitter
solved.
oxygen. Yeah.
If only.
You can find Belinda across social media. She does have a lot of good news. There is good stuff going on in the environment. So find her at Belinda Waymouth, Waymouth. Love our visits with you on Wednesdays. Thanks, Belinda.
Oh, totally my pleasure. Bye, everybody.
That's It's the Planet, Stupid.
More
It's the planet, stupid. No, it's the planet, stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.